Welcome back to my YouTube channel, everybody. My guest today is Mr. Larry Bettendorf, who in 1999 was a special agent with the ATF. And today with Larry, we'll talk about the Columbine shooting, which is even today probably the biggest, or at least the most famous high school shooting in the history of the United States. Thanks for your time, Larry. Thanks for joining me today.
Thank you very much for having me on.
Well, Larry, before we start, would you like to tell me and my viewers what your role in the investigation was as an ATF agent, what you did as part of this investigation?
Yes, during that time, I was assigned to the Phoenix Field Division in Arizona, which also covered all of Colorado. I was the public information officer, which meant it was my responsibility to deal with all of the media requests for interviews that would come in. So when the Columbine event happened, of course, I was immediately on an airplane going up to the Denver area to go up there and start dealing with the media. So I wasn't actually conducting the investigation, but I was speaking with the investigators so I could put out the appropriate information to release to the media during that time.
So in this case, we have these two guys by the names of Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold, who started a murder spree all of a sudden, at least as far as we know. Do you have an idea what triggered this murder craze in their minds?
Well, we believe that they were being bullied at school, or they felt they were being bullied. They were outcasts. They just didn't feel like they belonged there. And this was their chance at retribution for all the kids who had picked on them.
Okay, so this is why they felt like underdogs. They felt like outcasts, and this is what probably sparked the whole story in their minds. But they also assembled bombs themselves. And I think you studied, you saw these bombs that they assembled. What did these bombs tell us about them?
They put an incredible amount of effort into planning this. When you go back and look, Eric Harris started keeping a journal about a year before the event, and he started detailing his plans and what he wanted to do at the school. It was very detailed to the point where he had surveillance notes where he was in the school cafeteria during lunchtime, documenting how many students were in there at what time and when the highest number of students would be in there, and that's when they would plan their attack. So he had very detailed notes and reconnaissance. He even went so far in his journals to detail. He drew diagrams of himself and Dylan Klebold, and how they would have their guns in holsters or on slings, where they would have pipe bombs. So they put a tremendous amount of planning into this event. As far as the explosive devices, they had, I think there was right at like 99 different devices that they had at the school, on their person, in their vehicles, and at their homes. So it was a tremendous amount of work for the bomb squads dealing with that in the aftermath. And getting into the different types, they had little CO2 cartridges that you'd use like maybe in an airsoft gun, just little metal CO2 cartridges that they would fill with an explosive powder, and they were throwing those all over the school. They had regular galvanized steel pipe bombs that they had built, and they had a total of 6 bigger incendiary type devices that involved 20-pound propane tanks that had pipe bombs strapped to them, and they had timers on those. So they would go off at a predetermined time. So they were very detailed in their planning and what they wanted to do.
And of course, bombs were not the only weapons they had, because of course they also had guns.
Yes,
And
they did.
they bought an huge amount of guns, and they also modified them. What do these guns tell us about them?
Well, that it just goes to show the more planning that they put into this. Now, they had two shotguns, which they both sawed the barrels off of those to make them more concealable. They had a 9mm rifle, and they had a 9mm pistol. Now, Eric Harris was 18 years old at the time. Dylan Klebold was only 17. Dylan Klebold had a girl that he had been on a few dates with. He had her go and buy two shotguns for them, and I think maybe the rifle as well, because Dylan Klebold was not old enough yet to purchase any of those. So she went and purchased those long guns for them, not knowing what they were going to do with them.
Were you guys able to track down where these guns came from, like the stores that sold them?
Yes, as part of it, obviously, at the crime scene, all of the firearms were recovered, and then what ATF does, and we do this nationwide for every police department that recovers a firearm, ATF will conduct a firearms trace, and it will go to the manufacturer and trace the gun from the manufacturer through different firearms dealers to the final retail purchaser. And that's what we did in this case, and that's how we got to this young lady who purchased the firearms for them.
Well, these guys had, as I said before, a huge amount of weapons, and we have a lot of high school shootings in America, but I don't think that all the shooters use so many weapons. Is it common to have like all those guns and even bombs and even knives, as far as you know?
This was definitely on the extreme side. This is what we would call a multi-weapon attack. Even just within the type of pipe bombs that they had, different types to serve different purposes. They had some of the big propane cylinders they brought into the school cafeteria, and those were on a timer to go off, I believe, at 12:17 in the afternoon. And the hope is that would cause a big fire in the cafeteria and cause all the students to run outside where they were going to be waiting. So that was their plan, was to have the students run out of the school, and they were going to start shooting at them at that point. But their timed devices, their incendiary devices, were not well made as far as the firing circuit, so they didn't function. So at some point, when they realized these things aren't going off, they decided they were just going to go in the school and just start shooting there. And they still had all their pipe bombs, a lot of pipe bombs on them that they could just kind of throw as they were going.
Well, at the end of this killing rampage, they killed themselves. So they are the last victims of the Columbine shooting. But in your opinion, was this a suicidal mission right from the start, or did something trigger in their minds during the attack itself? I know I'm just asking for your personal opinion here, because we'll never know.
Yeah, well, I don't think there was any real escape plans, because they each drove cars to the school that day, and they had incendiary devices on timers in each of their vehicles, because their thought, what they detailed in their notes on that, was they wanted to get the first responders and other students that are standing around in the parking lot after the school was evacuated. So they set those for like an hour after the attack. So they wanted to do more damage out in the parking lot. So that doesn't show to me any kind of great or any plan to actually get out of there and try to escape. They had so many journal entries where they talked about this over a year, and I'm not aware of any plans of them actually trying to escape.
So this was probably suicidal right from the start.
It looks that way, and that's the way a great number of these actually are, and that's how many of them end, is that they want to commit suicide and they want to do as much damage and hurt as many people as they can before they do it.
Well, as far as you know, what mistakes were done by responders? Because I saw, for instance, that the SWAT team arrived late and on the wrong side of the building or something of the sort. But generally speaking, what mistakes were done in your opinion?
Well, you have to remember, back in 1999, law enforcement wasn't used to responding to incidents like this. The way that we were trained back then, because I was on our SWAT team for a number of years. When you have somebody like a barricaded suspect or a hostage situation, you want to put up a perimeter, you want to wait, you want to get the hostage negotiator on the phone. So our tactics were completely different. Where out of this event, police departments started to identify, law enforcement in general, started to come up with new procedures for what they called active shooter training. When you have somebody in a building shooting, you don't wait for backup. You go in with, whoever you have with you, and whatever firearms you have, you go. And it can be a horrible situation, but it runs counter to all the training that had been done for decades and decades in the way that police departments operated. So it was just kind of an evolution, and unfortunately it took a bad event like this, because the SWAT team was doing what all SWAT teams were trained to do. You get your team there, you put up a perimeter, you figure out what's going on and come up with a plan, rather than today it's, you get there, you hear gunfire, you go towards the sound of gunfire. You pass everything else up and you go to the sound of gunfire, and you confront them.
Yeah.
So it's the thinking has evolved, and the tactics have evolved immensely since then. And it's a good thing that they have, because we're seeing, obviously we see more of these incidents.
Well, at the very beginning of this discussion, you said that probably these two guys were considered underdogs by themselves. Therefore, I wonder, could this massacre have been prevented by understanding what these two guys had in mind before they started killing people?
There were warning signs or things that could have triggered some kind of scrutiny. The year prior, they had both been arrested and convicted of breaking into a van, and so breaking and entering and theft. They were working as pizza delivery guys, and at their restaurant, while they were waiting for their next next delivery, they would go out behind the store and they would set off pipe bombs. And some of the employees knew it, but they never called the police or called the authorities or let anyone know. There were other things. They did a video for a school project where I think they titled theirs, it was Hitman for Hire, where they're running up and down the halls of the school yelling profanity and saying that they're gonna kill people and acting out killing people. And this was a school project that was turned in several months before the shooting. So there are a number of things that if somebody was looking, they could go, these guys are going down a dangerous path. They weren't creating some great video project. They were just kind of acting out, and that should have read some red flags. If all the dots had been connected, maybe they could have had somebody give them some counseling, something.
What is even today the legacy of Columbine? Because I think that this attack sparked all the following school shootings.
Yeah, the legacy is on the law enforcement side, it's the complete changing of tactics and how law enforcement deals with it. And I hope that schools and parents and police, I hope that the legacy of this is that, we need to be vigilant, to looking out for people, looking for the red flags. And if somebody needs has some mental health issues, needs some counseling, they need to get that, because these are people, I think for many of them, feel they have no other recourse. They have, they want to end it, and they want to go down, taking a whole bunch of people with them. People just need to be aware and to say something if something is out of order with someone.
Well, let me ask you the $1 million question. Do you think that United States have a problem with fire guns and that laws should be more restrictive or something of the sort?
I personally do not think so. If we pass laws right now outlawing every firearm in America, the criminals are still going to have guns. There's so many of them out there. They are going to get them. And if you look back to the beginning of civilization, people have been killing people, whether it's with rocks, clubs, arrows. People have been killing each other since the beginning of time, and it's really tragic.
I know yours is a totally legitimate point of view. The discussion is open and is going on for decades. Therefore, of course, every opinion is definitely legitimate. Well, Larry, many thanks for your time and for your very detailed and precise explanations about this tragedy. And I do think that me and my viewers know much more about this event than we did before watching this video. So thanks a lot.
Thank you so much for having me on.
Thanks everybody else for watching this, and see you all next time. Bye-bye.